I'm on a mission to make all my garden bed edging really clean, crisp, and defined. I want that mulch line all the way around all of my landscape beds to be so sharp and smooth and beautiful and really stand out. Right now, the landscape beds around my house have some pretty nice edging. I've been going through with a shovel and just occasionally using the shovel to define that edge, but that's not cutting it for me anymore. I want a solution that will hopefully make it easier to maintain and also just kind of clean it up and make it nice and crispy and just beautiful. So let me show you what we're currently working with and what new tools I bought to hopefully be an easy solution for this. Right now, the edges look kind of like this. The grass creeps in and it kind of cuts over, but you can see the mulch is still defined underneath. It's just not crisp and clean. Now, we do use the weed eater and come through with the weed eater tilted at a slight angle and kind of cut a line. However, our weed eater is a little fickle. It's a little hard to start and it's kind of heavy for me to bend it at that angle to do all of our beds. So I went to Lowe's yesterday and I picked out a few new toys to play with that'll hopefully, solve all these issues. We'll see. We'll test them out today, see if they actually work and make a difference. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been wanting to try these out for a while. I already tested it a little bit last night and so far so good, but I picked up the Ego Edger. This is basically a blade that spins around really fast and it cuts a nice, clean, crisp edge along the garden beds. And it has a wheel here on the back, so you have something to support it with, and you're not having to try to hold it in place yourself. The wheel's a nice guide. The one I bought is actually part of their multi-tool system. As you can see, it's an attachment, and it attaches on to the bigger system, and you can buy different pieces to swap in and out for it. So it's here on the ground. Let me pull it up. So I bought it in a kit. It came as a 2-pack. It came with the edger and a weed whacker. This weed whacker detaches right here from the middle part. Let me go ahead and unscrew it. So this knob just unscrews, and then there's like a thumb push button, and you can pull it out. And then the space here you can use for different implements as well. The main reason why I purchased this one is because the battery push handle system is so easy to turn on and off. My biggest qualm with weed whacking is pulling that cord and getting it to start. Our weed whacker is a little more fickle than others and it's hard to start. So having the battery operated one will be a quick start. We've already had the Ego brand leaf blower and I really loved it. My biggest qualm with our old leaf blower was that the pull cord was hard for me to pull and it was hard to start. And so having the battery operated one, it instantly starts just like that. You don't need to pull a cord, you don't need to do anything with it. We bought this last year, I think, and we've had absolutely no problems with it, and it's great. I like just blowing off the porches every day with this. It's great. But that's not what this video is about. The video is about the edger and the weed whacker and making these garden beds look nice. The battery has a light indicator that tells you how long the charge has left on it. I'm pretty impressed with the battery life on these. Like I mentioned, it does have other attachments you can buy for the end. So I can see ourselves in the future getting some other ones that they offer. They offer a hedge trimmer and a pole saw and I think like a broom thing that you can get gravel out of your yard with, and a snow blower, and I think there's even a tiller on here. Anyway, there's all sorts of different attachments you can add to the end of these things. Pretty cool. I'm excited about these new toys for the garden. So without further ado, let me show you how these work and we'll go make these garden beds look much cleaner and beautiful.
I'm going to start with the edger attachment. Just as a reminder, this is what the garden bed looks like when we're getting started. I'm using the edger at the lowest setting, so it is cutting the shallowest it'll cut, if that makes sense. I think I can go up to 3 inches in total depth on the cut. but I went ahead and cut it just the shallowest level that it would do, just to see how it does. I'll play around with the different settings throughout this video to see how deep I want those cuts to be, to figure out what works best for my garden and my soil. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be going back and forth between the weed whacker and the edger as I do each of the garden beds, because for the camera setup, it's easier if I don't have to move the camera a bunch of times. But in the future, when I am taking care of these beds by myself without filming it, I will probably weed whack all the beds and then edge all the beds and then leaf blow them all off and do all of that around the entire house at one time. I want to give you the complete before and after shots though, so I am going to do all 3 steps for each section of the bed.
So far I'm really impressed. It really works well. I've been trying to come through and use a shovel to dig a cut in my garden beds like this, and with the edger tool, I think it'll go by a lot faster. I have noticed that there's a little adjustment on the wheel so that you can adjust how deep the cut goes. With grass, a lot of grass spreads by rhizomes, and the roots just kind of creep as the grass grows, and it'll creep into your garden bed if you're not careful. So by having that cut initially established, it'll prevent that rhizome from going over into your garden bed. Now, as you can see, I did have to pull a few different clumps of grass out because I have not been great about keeping up with using the shovel because it is a lot of work. This went by really fast. That took like a couple seconds. So I think I can definitely keep up with it and make it look a lot sharper and cleaner. I think it looks really nice. I like the way it looks. And the weed whacker seems to be a little bit lighter weight than our previous one, which is nice.
Before we do this bed, I just need to move this hose out of the way. This hose was run down to our chicken coop, giving them some water earlier, so I don't want to be cutting that up. The lavender that you see planted along the edge of this bed is lavender that we planted together earlier this spring. This lavender started out as just a tiny, maybe 4-inch by 4-inch pot, and it's really taken off and done quite well. I have lavender now lining almost every single bed around the entire house. I've really been enjoying the look of the purple lavender. It kind of just has a very soft, whimsical English cottage garden feel, which I'm really enjoying. I think that is more my style. The more I garden, the more I find myself kind of leaning in that direction. There are still a few weeds that always need to be pulled in each of the garden beds every day, even though we have them heavily mulched. The mulch definitely does help suppress the weeds though. I like to keep the garden beds pretty tidy, and I try to come through and weed every day for at least a few minutes. Normally, when the kids and I are playing outside, if we see a weed or two, I'll just stop and pull it as I walk by. I don't have necessarily a dedicated weeding time most days. The cannas my mom gave me earlier this year are looking really pretty in that bed as well. You may also notice a little black snake-like tubing that is in the corner of the frame here. This black snake-like tubing is not a snake, it is our drip irrigation system. I added drip irrigation all around all the landscape beds around the house this year, and it has been so lovely. I've had drip irrigation over in our vegetable garden for the last several years. I have videos about that whole system and setup on our YouTube channel if you want to look it up. But I have not put them next to the house. That is until this spring, and I'm so glad we did that. The drip irrigation is something that I really enjoy having, especially with the hot, dry, pretty much drought-like summer that we've had. My plants would not be as happy as they are now at the end of the season if we had not had that drip irrigation installed. I have to show you an up-close shot of how well this edger is working. I am very impressed with just the smooth, clean lines it's giving my garden beds. I think now that I've done this initial cutting, it'll also be much easier to maintain and stay on top of as well. When you have the right tools for the job, projects definitely go a lot smoother and can be done more efficiently and a lot faster as well.
That works so well. Do you see the before And then the after. That's fantastic. I'm excited to get all this trimmed up. It creates a nice, clean, sharp line, but you still need to pull out those couple weeds that went ahead and made its way over the border initially.
The weeds that are growing in my garden beds are pretty easy to take out. There's no real struggle since the garden beds are well mulched and also they stay pretty moist with the drip irrigation, so the soil makes it nice and easy to pull those weeds out. I'm still figuring out the best ways to use this edger, but one thing I did notice as I was doing this bed in particular is if you have the guard facing out, the grass kicks out into the grass versus the grass clippings kicking out into your garden bed. Which I'm making a little bit of a mess with the weed whacker anyway, and I've been leaf blowing all the different sections, so it doesn't really matter per se, but any grass seed you can keep out of the landscaping bed make less weeds for later on. You may hear some equipment running in the background. We are working on building a new building here on our farm, and I will share that whole process with y'all later on. If you're interested, let me know in the comments and I can share the building setup and process. But there's been lots of construction equipment and lots of busy evenings, and every free second pretty much has been spent working on that project. Lots of exciting times coming up for sure. The garden beds are looking so nice now. I really love the difference. I mean, it speaks for itself. You saw the before, and now you can see the after, the nice, crisp, clean edging. I like using this method. I think I will definitely be keeping up with it and continuing that. Oh, I missed a couple little pieces of clover here. Gotta pull those out of the ground. I went ahead and weed whacked around my kids' sandbox because definitely want to keep that clean and trim and tidy. You can see the big pile of dirt in the background. That's what we've been working on, our project over there. As I was weed whacking around the sandbox, Ryan saw me working on it and decided he wanted to give the new tools a try. So he popped over and wanted to test them out. He said he really liked everything from his first try as well. He said it all worked really great, and he was actually pretty impressed with how powerful the weed whacker was. That's one of the comments he made, was that he expected a gas-powered one to be stronger, but he didn't notice any significant difference between the battery-operated one and the gas one. Just as a reminder, let's look at official before and after shots of all the bed to wrap up here. So these are what the beds looked like before we did all of our edging and weed whacking and tidying things up. Lots of grass starting to creep into the beds, as you can see, and lots of that grass has little seed pods on it too. And all those seed pods will set grass seed, and then that makes more weeds to pull later on. So by edging and cleaning things up proactively, it not only looks sharper, but it also helps to keep weeds out of your beds, which is one of the main reasons I want to do it as well, in addition to it looking nice, obviously. So you just saw all the before shots, and here is the after. I have finished edging all around the house. All the different landscaped beds are all now completely tidied up and clean and looking really nice and really pretty. I am very happy with this new Ego Edger. I'm really glad that I was able to pick it up at Lowe's the other day. You can also buy it online from Lowes.com. I'll leave a link in the description if you are interested. It definitely saved a lot of time. I did all of that pretty quickly compared to probably it would have taken quadruple the amount of time if I had gone through and manually used the shovel to sharpen up that edge on every single bed. Kind of a mini transformation, little yard makeover in the landscape beds here today.
I'm Cara if you're new here. This is Bluebird Homestead. Don't forget to subscribe and like today's video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this garden bed landscaping cleanup video. I guess that's what you want to call it. Anyway, bye y'all.